Welcome to the National Association of Social Workers LEAD Training. As we prepare for our Legislative, Education, and Advocacy Day for 2020, we are excited about the opportunity to advocate for those issues that impact individuals, communities, and organizations that align with the NASW Code of Ethics and our legislative priorities. Understanding the social worker's role involves looking at the 6 core values that are cited in the Code of Ethics: service, social justice, dignity and worth of the person, the importance of human relationships, integrity, and competence. As social workers, we are called to address these issues that align with our Code of Ethics. Many of the legislative priorities that we will consider will directly connect to these 6 core values. Specifically in our Code of Ethics, 6.04, we are given a charge as social workers to engage in social political action, to be aware of the impact on practice, to advocate for changes in policy to improve social conditions, and to promote social justice. These 4 directives should guide us in all of our advocacy around legislative issues. One interesting thing to note is regardless of if you are a clinician involved in more of a macro practice or a micro practice, all of us as social workers are called to be involved in social and political action. Now, why should social workers and social work students be involved? Well, first of all, we have a unique perspective and skill set. 1, we understand complex social environments. 2, we have a very unique person and environment perspective. So we're able to really look at the big picture and all of the issues that impact on decisions that we make. We have a unique ability to bring a face to an issue. So many times members in our communities that we represent may be disenfranchised or disempowered, but we as professional social workers and social work students, we have a responsibility to bring those faces to the issue. As social workers, we're also great at relationship building, being able to establish a win-win, to negotiate, to be able to present different sides of an issue are all aspects of social work skills that we excel in. Now, social work legislation advocacy is part of our professional heritage. So when we look back historically, beginning with the New Deal, social workers were involved in leading those advocacy efforts. Civil Rights Act of 1965, we had social workers that were on the front lines. So when we think about Whitney Young and Dorothy Height and the accomplishments that they made in terms of civil rights, it should make us very proud as social workers. And in Florida, we have a long history of advocacy and being part of legislative change, beginning with title protection, the Florida Institute for Child Welfare, our child protection and child welfare professional legislation that we actively were involved in passing. So it's important that we look back each year at our legislative accomplishments, and there are many. Now, if we think about the basics of Florida government, we want to make sure that everyone is aware and remembers the 3 branches of government. So our legislative, our executive, and our judicial branches of government. It's important to know that when we are looking at how laws are passed, and even how an idea becomes a law, we want to make sure that we are aware of how our government is established. The one thing that's important to know about how an idea becomes a law is that it can begin with anyone. So any person who is a citizen or a legislature, member of the legislature, they can propose an idea, and that idea can go through a pretty arduous process in order to become a law. But remember this, it can start with you. It starts with one person with an idea with a point of advocacy, bringing that idea forward, gaining the support of members of the Florida legislature in order for that idea to become a law. So you might want to take a look at this and be more aware of all of the steps in the process. Now, when we think about our branches of government, the legislative branch involves the House of Representatives and the Senate. In our House of Representatives, we have 120 representatives in Florida. They have 2-year terms and they have a 4-term limit. In the Senate, there are 40 senators. They have 4-year terms and they have a term limit of 2 terms. Now, involved in the representatives and the Senate, there are key players that are at the forefront of discussions and voting around specific bills that are presented. Committees and committee chairs play a leadership role in the House of Representatives and the Senate. So it's important to be aware of who serves on what committees and who those committee chairs are. They are very influential. Keeping yourself aware of who serves in leadership in all of our committees is important with getting your perspective to be heard. Now, in reviewing our issues and legislation, let's look at what we are considering for 2020, as well as how do you understand what the bills are going to be. So first of all, you can search a bill through the text or by a bill number. So if you hear about a bill that's coming forward, you can simply Google that bill. You'll find the bill number and information, and you can read that bill. If there is something that is already part of legislation and the bill is being changed, if you see an underline, that means that that is an addition, or if you see a strike through, that means it's a deletion. So anything that's written in a normal text is just there for your content. One of the questions we get asked every year is, how do you know which bills are going to be passed? What is the likelihood that they will be passed? So there are a few things that is important to keep in mind around bill passage. First thing is introducing a bill early in both houses is important. If a bill has multiple sponsors, that shows good support. If it has bipartisan support, that's important because that means that you'll be able to have support on both sides of the aisle. If it's assigned to a few committees, if it keeps moving through the process, and if it has support of the governor or state agencies and any influential people working to pass that bill. These particular items are surely signs of successful passage of a bill. It is much more likely. The more of these you have on your side, the more likely it is that that bill may pass. Now for 2020, NASW Florida has established our legislative agenda. We have 3 legislative priorities. The first priority in our legislative agenda is mental, behavioral, and medical health services. In this area, we are passionate about supporting funding for mental health services, in particular, services in schools, making sure that we have accessible and affordable health care for all families. We want legislation that encourages smart decarceration and uses mental and behavioral health treatment options rather than prison. We want to make sure that our procedures for involuntary commitment protect clients and the public. We want to support an expansion and improvement of mental health and behavioral health services, especially for our veterans who have served all of us and their families. We want to make sure that our licensed clinical social workers are able to be reimbursed for Medicaid mental health services independently. We want to make sure that individuals who are aging, people with disabilities, their caregivers, and any marginalized individuals based on sexual orientation, gender identity, race, ethnicity, lack of access to care and immigration status. We want to make sure that all of those individuals have increased mental, behavioral, and medical health services. And finally, we clearly oppose any legislation that restricts access to patient health care. This is our first legislative agenda, and we will be focused on this during all LEAD activities. Our second item on our legislative agenda is our social work workforce. We clearly want to articulate to all of those in our Florida legislature that we as social workers support hiring school social workers to provide mental health services. Secondly, we support fair and marketable reimbursement rates for social workers providing mental and behavioral health services through public and private insurance carriers. We have to make sure that our social work workforce is paid professional salaries aligned with any other medical helping professional. We also support the Florida legislature in their efforts to manage caseloads for case managers and recruit, train, and retain qualified child welfare staff. We support making sure that the need for licensure and or certification for bachelor's level social workers and non-clinical master's level social work has greater licensure mobility for our licensed social workers. We want to make sure that we are growing as a profession and we have opportunities for those who choose this profession. And finally, our third legislative agenda is around social justice. We start our social justice agenda with looking at juvenile diversion programs. We want to promote those programs to decrease the disproportionate representation of marginalized populations in the juvenile justice system, and those sentences are referred to the adult court system. So we want to make sure that our juveniles are given the support that they need, the treatment that they need. We also support programs that reduce homelessness or assist individuals who are experiencing homelessness. We want to make sure that they have affordable housing options. If there is an agenda around voter engagement, we are engaged as social workers. That includes voter registration. We want to discourage legislation that limits opportunities and accessibility to voting, and we are opposed to any voter suppression efforts. In addition, on our social justice priority, we promote legislation that allows services and employment for all people, regardless of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender, age, marital status, political belief, religion, immigration status, or mental or physical disabilities. Part of our legislative agenda is to support the reproductive rights of women. We advocate for fair and just immigration policies to include opposition to family separation, detention center, and criminalizing asylum seekers. Our focus on immigration policies is at the forefront of our legislative agenda and advocacy around social justice. We also support legislation that decreases gun violence. Now, you've heard our legislative priorities and our legislative agenda. We encourage you to explore those bills that align with those priorities. You can find those bills on our NASW Florida LEAD page. So I encourage you to look further into that information. Now, as you prepare for LEAD, preparing for your advocacy appointments. So as part of LEAD, you'll have an opportunity to visit with representatives. And so one of the things you want to think about is pre-planning. So who to visit? If you are a Florida resident, consider focusing your time and energy on visiting your representative or your senator, committee members from your area, and In addition, you want to expand your network. So committee members who may be from outside your areas, especially if there is an agenda on their committee agenda that you want to focus on. Before lead, find your legislators online, call them, and set up an appointment. You may be meeting with an aide or an assistant, which is absolutely fine. If you need to find your elected official, you can go on the myfloridahouse.gov website. You can put in your information and it will tell you who your elected officials are from your area. Now, when you arrive at LEAD, there are two LEAD events that we want you to be excited about. One of the events is a LEAD training that will occur on January 27th, and the second event is our LEAD Rally and Capital Advocacy. First, let's take a look at our LEAD training. So on January 27th, at the Donald L. Tucker Civic Center in Tallahassee, we will have our LEAD training. LEAD training will begin at 3:30 p.m. and will end by 7 p.m. Now, the dress code for this event is casual, school, and social work spirit. So you can come comfortably and be excited to learn about the legislative agenda that we will be focused on. You'll get an opportunity to learn more about bills that we'll be exploring. You'll have an opportunity to network with other students and professionals from around the state of Florida. And you will also meet your social work leadership during that time. At the LEAD training, additional things that are going to happen that's so important that we make sure that you're prepared for. Bring your questions. We'll have an opportunity to ask questions. You'll receive all kinds of important information, and we will have speakers that you will not want to miss. You will also hear about what to expect at the LEAD Rally and Advocacy Day at the Capitol, and you'll get lots of important information. At the second event, our LEAD Rally and Capitol Experience. Now, that event is going to be on January 28th. It will be behind the Florida Capitol at Waller Park, where the Dolphin Fountain is located. We will kick off at 8 o'clock a.m. sharp with registration and breakfast. At 8:30, we will have our LEAD Rally, and at 9 o'clock, we will begin our LEAD Capitol Experience by attending legislative appointments and committee meetings. The dress code for January 28th is business attire. So we are asking you to not wear jeans to this event. We would like you to represent your profession well by having appropriate business attire. During this Rally and Capitol Experience, you'll get to meet social workers from all around the state of Florida. We're going to encourage you to use your own voice to express our social work commitment to social justice and advocacy, especially for oppressed and marginalized populations. You will get a chance to meet with legislative staff or legislators to share your position. Now, these appointments are around 5 minutes in length each. If you make these appointments, you don't want to go in a massive group. We encourage you to go in groups of about 3 to 5. Designate a lead spokesperson because your time will be limited, and only focus on 1 or 2 issues so that you capture the attention of the person that you're speaking to. In addition, please attend committee hearings and observe the process. Try and attend as many committee hearings as possible. We will also have tabling set up by social work programs and agencies, and we encourage you to visit those and learn more about social work, some of the areas of advocacy and legislation in this session. When you're getting around LEAD, now remember the Capitol is a huge complex, and so lines are going to be long to get into the Capitol building through security, so be patient. You're going to probably get lost, but that's okay. You can always go to the NASW Florida table in the Capitol and you will be able to get directions, or you'll see someone from our leadership team and we'll be happy to help you. As much as possible, try to group your appointments by location. And remember, the elevators are a little tricky. Not all of them go to all floors, but I don't want you to miss going up to the top of the Capitol and being able to get that view of the entire Tallahassee city. It's impressive. So make sure you have time to go all the way to the top. During the session committee meetings, you can attend these meetings. They are open. The calendars are available online. We will also be providing you with all of the meeting information at the lead training. Remember, if there's an issue you're really interested in, you can sign up online for bill tracking, and you'll be able to get updates about those bills. During your legislative visits, we talked about scheduling them in advance. Always do some relationship building during this time. Find something to thank the person for that you are meeting with, whether it may be just the fact that they are a leader, that they are there serving their communities. You don't have to agree on every point, but you want to find something that you can connect with. If you live in their district, you may want to mention that. We never threaten our vote. That is disempowering, so we always want to lead from a positive. Don't make assumptions, and remember, in social work, we start where the client is. That means whoever it is that we are speaking to. Also, during your legislative visit, make sure that you're prepared. You're to the point. You make sure that you are covering exactly what it is you came to say, and you will be provided at the lead training with some sheets on each of the legislative bills that we are following. So you'll be able to use those sheets of information to articulate your perspective even more clearly. If you don't know, you can simply say that, and you can ask the legislator that you're speaking with how they plan to vote and try to express your particular perspective in a professional and positive manner. Never underestimate the impact that you might have. Also, keep it moving. Following lead, follow up by communicating back, thanking the person that you met with for their time and their service. And try and visit them if they're in your area when you return home and they are there in that area. There are some resources we'd like to leave you with. These are websites that you can get directly to the Florida House and Senate information, as well as the bottom link is for the NASW Florida legislative page. It has the legislative agenda there and everything else you need to know about LEAD 2020. Please go on that website, print out information, share it with others as well. I'd like to leave you with Whitney Young's quotes. Now, Whitney Young, of course, is a very proud social work leader who was very active during civil rights. If you don't know about Whitney Young, I challenge you to know about Whitney Young by the time you get to LEAD. 2 quotes. It's better to be prepared for an opportunity and not have one than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. Keep that in mind. And finally, I am not anxious to be the loudest voice or the most popular, but I would like to think that at a crucial moment, I was an effective voice of the voiceless, an effective hope of the hopeless. That is Whitney Young, one of our social work leaders. We thank you so much for participating in this LEAD training. We look forward to your participation in LEAD 2020. We want to see you in Tallahassee. Take care, and remember that as social workers, we are called to lead.